Welcome back to another episode of the Don't Take Us Seriously podcast. Today we're going to be talking about NFL teams and how they change every year. There's no team that stays intact throughout the year, and there's no team that makes it through an NFL season untouched. That's the reality of this league. We felt compelled to talk about this in the aspect that's never really mentioned much throughout the media. So just to give you guys a touch of background, there's 55 players are on each roster. 48 of them can be active on every given game day. There's 11 offensive starters, and then there's 11 defensive starters. We call this the starting unit on the offense and defensive side of the ball. I know what you're thinking. Oh, in college and everything, you got the Chris Gambles and the Charles Woodsons and the Champ Baileys of the world. They could play both sides of the ball. Those are anomalies. They do not. They are the exception. They are not the rule. Every person has a role typically on an NFL team. Each roster spot gets used. And speaking of the rest of the roster, the rest of it is filled by special teamers. It's filled by the punt return unit, the kickoff unit, the field goal unit, the returners for the punt and kickoff. Hey, and then you got substitutes for the defensive and offensive units. That brings us the second string players. Second string players are the guys that are used to substitute. These are guys that are getting shuffled in, when they get hurt or if they're just needed for a quick breather. I mentioned those breathers because they're guys, when these substitutes and rotational players, when they do come in to give that starter a breather, you'll see on the TV camera, on the TV timeouts and things of that nature, you'll see guys on the sideline, sitting there with, oxygen tanks next to them. Usually these are bigger guys. So these are the Vince Wilforks of the world. These are the Casey Hamptons for all you old heads back in the day. These guys are the ones that you'll see sucking up oxygen, trying to catch their breath and everything. That's because they need a rotational player guy to get in there, because if they're in there for multiple plays, these guys pushing 300 plus, they need a guy to get in there for them. Then that brings us to the third string players. These are the guys you don't really see too often. These guys are usually developmental players. Sometimes they're active, sometimes they're not active during a game. These are guys that teams hope can turn into either second string players, and every now and again you'll get a third string player turn into a starter, but that's pretty rare.
Each of these 32 teams have a couple of stars on their team. For a casual fan, we might know maybe 10 to 15 names from a totality of all the football teams. We might know the players a little more deeply if we're a fan of one of those teams. Otherwise, everyone else is just a face for us. Most of the time, the news cycle, media, Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, and all these blowhards talk about the superstars. That is what drives the news. Patrick Mahomes, a Tom Brady, anything related to the Dallas Cowboys. These are the things that have given way to the giant media section that is built on the back of the NFL players. Then you have the coaches. We might know the names of the head coaches, but after that, it's just another face. And you might go lower in the rungs with the names of a quarterback coach, wide receivers coach, etc. Those names are remembered by no one. This forms the typical football team.
Once the season ends for that team, whether that's a 17 games, a regular season, or this team they're making a run in the playoffs, always it comes to an end. It's part of the NFL grind. The group team success, where they had these aspirations of reaching the Super Bowl or to make a deep playoff run, that comes to an end. And then the individual dream of trying to have on the field accolades that turn into success for that person. So hopefully that can turn into profitability off the field or for another long-term contract. That comes to an end now too. But after that starts to shuffle. Teams that failed during the season, now they're going to start trying to poach off these good teams, these teams that had more success throughout their season. That turns into some guys getting cut, some coaches getting fired. And the example I like to use for this is more or less the Dolphins last year with Brian Flores. They had him on there. I want to say they went 8-8 or 8-9. I'm not sure. I think they went 8-9 through the season. And then turn around, they fire the guy. They didn't like the direction the team was going. I was like, okay. These teams, they'll turn around and they'll point to another team that's had stability, a team that's looking on the up and up. They looked at the 49ers and they picked Mike McDaniels off of them, an offensive-minded coach for their team. So what that turns into is Brian Flores and his whole staff, they get axed. So that's a whole bunch of guys that just turn into being unemployed. That's players that are now unemployed too, because they may not fit Mike McDaniel's system. So that's just the reality of the league that kind of gets, brushed under the rug a little bit. For us, we just see the top from the superstars. We see these guys that are stay on the same team for a little while. We see guys that are making commercials. They're making appearances with Stephen A. or Shannon Sharp, or other talking heads. Eventually, these guys can get traded too. That's the reality. But in general, these guys typically have more job stability. Think of Tom Brady. Think of Patrick Mahomes. It's the second stringers, though, who really, get the short end of the stick here. Some of these guys, yes, they could potentially be starters with other teams. You never know. And these third stringers, these are the guys that are typically going to get cut and have to try and latch on with another team. Because one team, they may have one philosophy, but another team, maybe we just see another guy here. These are the guys who they don't make a lot of money. They don't make millions in their bank account. These are the guys that are that could be moving every year in the NFL. It's sad to say, but that's how it can be. Sometimes they're moving multiple times in a year. I don't know about some of you guys. I don't like to move. I hate to move. It's a pain in my ass. It's not something that's fun. It just sucks. It's one of those things where when you're trying to look for where home is, it's not like ET where it's like, oh, ET phone home. You don't have a home because you don't know where your next place is going to be. What we call home, that safety and security, it's gone for some of these guys. They don't know if they're going to get another shot in the league. They're basing all off of a dream, especially these third stringers. These guys, they do their best to continue to chase that NFL dream. Teams, if they don't have success, these coaches, their dream gets fired too.
We're mainly going to talk about these guys who are second and third stringers, as well as lower positional coaches. For the players, once the season ends, they're working on recovery from all the hits they've taken during the season. Then it's off to see if the team cuts them. Until then, it's anxiety filled. Living in the unknown. If they are cut, then they wait to see if another team is going to pick them up. Lots of them do have agents. The agent calls around different teams, boosting the signal for the players. Some careers do come to an end, especially when you get closer to that 28, 29 years of age. For regular people, we're just now flourishing in our careers. For these athletes, they're considered the old dogs at this point. It is considered old. You have to have some amazing ESPN-worthy highlights to keep going after that. Yeah, Tom Brady is playing at the grand old age of 46. We're going to be honest, that shit doesn't happen. Brady is an exception to the rule. There's no rule to base his situation off of. These guys, they're not living in mansions. Most of them are in rental apartments. Some live in hotel rooms. There is no grand Instagram-worthy lifestyle that is going on. That's for OBJ and his fellow band of merry men. And off the players go to a new place. If a relative lives there, they might couch crash. Otherwise, it's straight to a hotel or motel that is, close to their respective team headquarters. With the coaches, it's even more unstable. Most of these guys are married and a lot of them have kids. They get shuffled around. The family sacrifices. The kids need new schools and need to find new friends. The wife needs to find a place to live and other stuff that goes with building a home. And oftentimes they don't get to see their husbands, because most of the time spent at the team facilities. Yeah, NFL coaches spend long hours in their office, sometimes sleep in their office, oftentimes, and it more or less looks like a pantry. Not like the war room Cliff Kingsbury has with the Cardinals. Uprooting their families with each new job is the norm. As we are putting the spotlight on these things, we are not suggesting that somehow we are upset with these things. All we're getting at is that to get a good product on the field, there has to be a lot of sacrifices. There is a cost to all these things and the ways of doing business. There is passion involved. There is ambition, dreams, and drive. There is a human cost to achieving this. We are not sure if Stephen A. or Skip Bayless are ever going to consider all these things. If not, it does not bring entertainment. As Russell Crowe in Gladiator said, are you not entertained? Their shows are catered towards entertainment. Our podcasts, we tend to deviate from that just a bit. What we're rooting for is that when we watch this amazing game every week, in the fall, through the winter, let us appreciate it with the knowledge that plenty of sacrifices went into what we see on our television screens.
And like always, guys, please like, comment, and subscribe if you guys like this information. And hey, catch us on the next one that Don't Take Us Seriously. We'll catch you guys next time. Peace.